Hey guys, what's going on? James here, and in this video today, we're going to be talking about what making the playoffs means for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. What do I mean by that? Well, firstly, what does it mean for Buccaneers head coach Todd Bowles? Secondly, what does it mean for starting quarterback Baker Mayfield? And ultimately, what does this mean for the team as a whole moving forward? I'm going to give my thoughts and opinions about this, and I would love to hear your guys' thoughts and opinions about this down in the comment section below. Firstly, it's a good thing that the Bucs made the playoffs, in my opinion. If you disagree with that, if you thought the Bucs should have won 5, 6, 7 games this year to get them a better draft pick, that's fine. I understand where people are coming from in those circumstances, and there are certainly some great points to be made. I think a situation like that is extremely subjective, and there isn't a perfect answer. Ultimately, in my opinion, it is good for the city of Tampa. It is good for the Buccaneers organization. It is good for culture. It is good for continuity. It is just good as a whole that this team won the NFC South for a third year in a row, made it to the playoffs for a fourth year in a row, and continues to show that they can be competitive without Tom Brady at quarterback. That is huge, and that is something that I don't think a lot of people expected at the beginning of this year. A lot of people thought the Bucs were going to win 2, 3, 4 games, something along those lines. Didn't happen, and it's good that the Bucs exceeded expectations. And I think that another thing that this means is that there was growth from the Bucs. I think that Rachaad White had a fantastic second year, was only 9 yards away from being a 1,000-yard rusher on the year, had over 530 receiving yards on the year as well. Rachaad White really blossomed in his second year at running back for the Bucs, and that was a fantastic thing to see. I think that Antoine Winfield Jr. had arguably, you could argue, a breakout year for the Bucs. And I know people are going to say Antoine Winfield Jr. has been good since the day he was drafted. And yes, while that is accurate, you could argue this was, I don't even know if it's an argument, this was his best year. He finished with phenomenal stats that some people have argued could be Defensive Player of the Year stats. I don't know if I'm 100% on board with that, but I will say 100% All-Pro, should have been a Pro Bowler easily, but, you know, life doesn't always make sense sometimes, and he did fantastic. Levante David was amazing this year. At the age of 34 years old, he still showcased that he has juice in the tank and that he is able to go out there and still lead this football team right alongside Antoine Winfield Jr. You had rookies impressing massively in Yaya Diaby, who finished with 7.5 sacks in the year, in Kalijah Kancey, who also finished with a very, very solid year as well. These were guys who, 4 sacks on the year for Kalijah Kancey, by the way. These were guys who went out there, showed growth, showed breakout opportunities, and ultimately were some of the catalysts for helping the Bucs get where they are today, which is an NFC South title, which is a playoff berth. And I don't even have to mention it. Mike Evans and Chris Godwin are both fantastic. Chris Godwin finished with 1,000 yards on the year, even though it was very much in doubt. Mike Evans finished with over 1,200 receiving yards and 13 touchdowns on the year. They both continue to be absolutely fantastic and make plays basically every single week. But the two big ones I want to talk about here. What does this mean for Todd Bowles? I think right now, the fact that the Buccaneers, and I've heard some back and forth on this, the fact that the Bucs won in Week 18 and made the playoffs helps Todd Bowles' case for staying with the Bucs in 2024. I've heard some people say that this hurts Todd Bowles, the way that the Bucs just barely scraped together a 9-0 win against the worst team in the NFL, and that it was not a convincing win, and that things could look really, really bad in the playoff game. That's fine for people to have that opinion, but I don't agree that I don't agree that it hurts more than it helps Todd Bowles. Losing would have been much worse in Week 18. Not making the playoffs would have been much worse in Week 18. And I made a video talking about the Atlanta Falcons firing Mr. Arthur Smith. Todd Bowles could have easily been another guy who would have been fired on the night of January 7th, January 8th, late, night of January, early morning of January 8th, I guess I should say, if he did not win in week 18 versus the Panthers. So I don't necessarily agree that this loss hurts Todd Bowles. Is it convincing that this team can make some noise in the playoffs? No, not necessarily. But at the end of the day, folks, the Bucs did win. The Bucs did defeat the Carolina Panthers, and it was 9-0. Look, a win's a win. It don't matter if it's pretty. It's still a win, and the Bucs still won the NFC South. The Bucs still went to the playoffs. That is more helpful than harmful for Todd Bowles' case moving forward. I'm going to say this right now as it stands. The only way I see Todd Bowles getting fired is if the Bucs are absolutely embarrassed in the playoffs. I think that if the Bucs show that they are competitive, it is more likelier than not that he is back. If they're absolutely embarrassed, lose by 20, 21, something along those lines, I think it is definitely more of a toss-up, but I still wouldn't say it is, 80% of a guarantee, or maybe even 70% of a guarantee. I might say there's a 60% chance Todd Bowles gets fired at that point, just because of the grit that we have seen from this team, the ability to fight through this year when not a lot of people had high expectations for this year, probably even some in the Buccaneers organization included, and fought back. Even, a lot of doubt after last week, and we're still able to win and still able to go to the playoffs. That does matter, in my opinion, and I do think that does help out Todd Bowles' job security. Again, you can disagree. You can say that the 9-0 loss hurts Todd Bowles' job security. That's just not where I'm at right now regarding that situation. Secondly, what does this mean for Baker Mayfield? Another big one, right there with the head coach. I think that Baker has earned himself a re-signing with the Bucs. What is that contract going to look like? I don't know. But Baker finished with over 4,000 yards on the year. He finished with 29 total touchdowns, including his rushing touchdown, and 10 interceptions. Look, if you don't like Baker Mayfield, that's fine. It's completely fine. I understand where people come from whenever they say they don't like Baker Mayfield for one reason or another. If you give me a quarterback, though, every year who is going to finish with 4,000 yards, 29 total touchdowns, 10 interceptions, and get his team to the playoffs, I'm sorry, in my opinion, that's a good year for a quarterback. And I think the good of Baker Mayfield this year outweighs the bad. And I talked about this team having grit and ability to fight back throughout this year and how that has affected Todd Bowles. I think a very, very similar thing can be said for Baker Mayfield, who has arguably set that tone for the Bucs this year. This is a Bucs team that, guess what? It's not going to be pretty, but they're going to scrap, they're going to try and fight, and they're going to try their best to be in every single game. I think Baker has been an example of that style of play, and I think that the coaching staff likes Baker, I think the front office likes Baker, and I think his fellow teammates like him as well as the quarterback of the Bucs moving forward into the 2024 season. People can disagree with that because I know that there are, still some people out there who definitely want to see the Bucs go in a different direction at quarterback, but based on what I've seen this year, I have been very satisfied with what I've seen from Baker this year. Has it been perfect? No quarterback is perfect, and that's just the way things are. Obviously, some quarterbacks are better than others, but I think Baker is good enough for you to consistently be in a playoff conversation, and that is satisfying to me. That is something that I want to see from a quarterback, from a team, and that's what the Bucs were able to accomplish this year. So I think that this helps out Baker Mayfield. I think that this helps him out massively in terms of him coming back. I think that even if the Bucs lost this game, there would still be a decent chance that Baker Mayfield would be coming back to the Bucs, but since they have won, since they went to the NFC South, since they are making the playoffs now, I think it is even more likely than before. 90% chance I'm going to say Baker's coming back, and I know people may say, come on, man, 50-50 or something like that. Again, for me, I'm going to say there's a very likely chance the Baker's back. Maybe not 90. Maybe I'm jumping the gun there. But I would say 85% wouldn't be surprising to me at all if he's back at this point. At all. And I think that he will be back with the Bucs. And I think that that's what this win means. That is what going to the playoffs, winning the NFC South, not doing it pretty, but at the end of the day, you still got a job done, means for Todd Bowles. I think his job security is in a better place now. I think Baker Mayfield is definitely in a great place now moving forward in this upcoming offseason. And I think ultimately, I'm happy with how the Bucs regular season went. They won 9 games on the year. They showed growth in areas, in my opinion. You saw guys grow, you saw guys develop, you saw guys break out, and there's a lot of good pieces to look forward to moving forward on both sides of the football for the Bucs, and they can continue to build on that in this offseason. Those are my thoughts and opinions after the playoffs, of course. Let me know your guys' thoughts and opinions about this down in the comments section below. People may be sour after this close win against Carolina, but I would encourage everybody to not focus on the negatives, because the positives here are the Bucs made the playoffs, the Bucs won the NFC South, and I think that that's something that all fans could certainly appreciate. So I would love to hear your guys' thoughts and opinions about this. But thank you guys so much for watching this video. Hope you all enjoyed. As always, guys, I'll see you all in the next video or the next live stream. But until then, and as always, guys, goodbye for now, and go Bucs.